Welcome, 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 everyone, to another adventure into reality. I am joined again by the master mentorship student, Martina Grubmueller. Welcome to the show, Martina.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to be here.
So, we are going to be discussing new things today. We want memories to stick inside you. Over the last couple shows, we've talked about what makes a teaching, what sticks. So, we're going to start out the show by asking people to pick up a pen or pencil or your computer and take a few notes. We are going to be giving you homework once again. In a little bit more than 8 or 9 days from now, depending where you are in the world, we are going to be having our summer solstice. Martina, what does the summer solstice mean to you as somebody that's been practicing spirituality for a long time?
To be honest, before I started working with your material, I have never done particularly, any ceremonial setups or anything on solstice time. Maybe a meditation, Kundalini or something. That has now changed, So I really work myself towards, I give myself little practice towards the solstice, maybe sending future treatments to myself, what I want to be, what do I want to create. And then obviously there's a multitude of tools that are available that that anyone can start using to actually do a little ceremony. And it doesn't have to be a huge fire. If you can make a fire, then it's obviously a great thing, but it doesn't have to be that way.
As you began to practice the material more and more, what did you discover that these rituals and ceremonies did for you?
Homecoming comes to mind, that word, where for me, it feels like I'm doing this just for me. Almost like it's a commitment to myself. And I don't necessarily have to share that with anyone else. It's really committing to myself, working with all the different selves, with my multidimensional self.
And let's break that word commitment down, because it's such a huge part of the discipline of discovering the daily practice, its great benefits.
So commitment is an interesting word for me. I've been looking at that word for many, many years, and I do remember it came up in the relationship. Because when I had my relationship with my partner, we were together now for 22 years. We never got married, and we have been very often been judged for commitment issues, and it has never been. I never understood that. That was the beginning for me looking at commitment. And then I started realizing, with all the practices and the spiritual work and everything, that commitment has nothing to do with a marriage vow. Actually, commitment is what you do for yourself, in order to get where you want to be, in order to create an experience for you. How committed are you?
So I want to ask everybody in the audience that's listening right now, whether on whatever platform you're on, what does commitment mean in all the realities of your spiritual process? There's a lot of people that are on the edge of making a commitment, but back away like an Indian giver. You give something to yourself, but you take it right back. They don't go to the next level of commitment, which is sustainability of the journey. And the sustainability of that journey takes commitment to conscious application of the sacred. Now, I've used this terminology over and over and over and over again until I was blue in the face. And now, the audience, there's a lot of old timers that have been here and heard me say that over and over again, but there's a lot of new people who don't understand the implementation of conscious application of the sacred. So, Martina, let's break this down, what this daily practice means when you are consciously applying your sacred art of the self through commitment.
It is a choice. It is a choice to be the best you can be on a daily basis, and to really stay present with what is. And I'm speaking for myself now, you know, that is commitment. Being present for what is required in the moment, and looking at how many back doors you actually have open. How many times do we want to be the chosen one? How many times do we want to be others? You know, to be the chosen one is pretty much like, you know, other people coming in telling us what to do, or other people coming in and choosing us. For instance, you know, coming onto the show with you here, I chose that as much as, you know, the way we got together. It's like, I remember doing the hot seat when we were working on coming out of the closet, and really committing to myself, to be heard, to be seen, no matter what the outcome would be. You know, it's that trusting yourself to commit to yourself.
And then having something within your frequency that holds you accountable. Now, a lot of people have this forgetting process that inner work is not by yourself. They think you do it with others. Inner work is meant to be done by itself. And if there's no inner accountability journey to your discipline and commitment, there is no commitment and discipline. Now, just having an honored daily practice is the baby steps at making commitment a discipline of conscious application of the sacred. The adult is having an ever-evolving accountability process to yourself. And of the years that you've done this, Martina, and the sessions that you've done for others and what you've done on yourself, how has that inner accountability process worked for you? And maybe share a story.
In accountability, you know, you got to come from a place of joy. You have to actually, you know, I never, to be honest, accountability, I never looked at it that way, because I've just been doing that naturally, because I am doing that with enthusiastic effort. And obviously working with other people as a therapist, I started in 2005, has given me that opportunity to see, when you start working with somebody else, you take, you know, responsibility for yourself, how that actually transfers to other people. So it's like that interaction with other people that are like-minded, that helps.
The other part of accountability is reviewing what you've done, having a journey through the victories and failures, so you don't do needless repetition.
So this is interesting. The way I've done that is I'm working on my 4th website. Mm-hmm. So every 2-3 years, I'm doing a new website, because I've completely out-created the old one. And then I use websites, and I didn't even know I was doing that, to really, because I have to start looking at myself. So where am I now? What am I actually want to do? So you can use anything, you know, and really look at what you're already doing without acknowledging, because I think this is where my path has been. I've been doing so many things naturally without acknowledging the victories, without acknowledging what I was doing.
But you're also using the website as your, I've achieved this level, and this is to get me to the next level for my particular part of the journey. There are Absolutely. A lot of people who we're going, I might use a little harsh words, that are posers, that do one revocation a month, one ceremony that's 10 minutes a year, so on and so forth. And they believe that that is enough. How do we help them to get beyond that fake belief that that's enough?
Well, that's simply a lie. You know, you just got to pull the lie. Whatever you brought that you can get away with that with one revocation, it's just a lie.
It's a lie that has no accountability behind it, but it has one attempt at conscious application of the sacred, which validates what? Not commitment. What is it validating when you're doing one a month? Vanity.
Yeah, well, and that's what I call having your back doors open. Somebody is going to come in and rescue you and tells you what to do. And that is not what's going to happen. If you want to become a sovereign master in living, if you wish, then you have to start taking responsibility, and that's part of it. And you know what? And I mean, that is not an easy thing to do. I don't know how many back doors I used to have open until you finally start closing them. And that comes through the emotional mastery, the self-healing, and the self-nurturing.
That journey into committing to more than once a month, many people are on that verge of making the commitment versus the old commitments that require time. Example, a 4-year-old kid that's going through troubles. Well, that 4-year-old kid's not going to be through troubles 24/7, 365. You have to be able to carve out individuated time, individual for yourself, so that you have that bordered space that say, this is my space. And a lot of people will commit to those other things, but they actually don't commit to the space they need individual for themselves.
Yeah, and it's also a matter of knowing yourself enough to know how you work, instead of, not going into self-judgment. I mean, part of the reasons why I came onto the mentorship was because I knew I needed something, not someone, but a structure that kept me, going over. We did that for an entire year, So I chose that. That was my commitment to myself. Not for validation, but I knew that I needed a certain structure in order to really push myself through all of that. So it's really a matter of knowing what makes you tick, how do you work, and then choose that.
And then I want to final touch on vanity. There comes a point where vanity falls apart to the repetition that's creating illumination. The vanity that says, I can do it once a month, after hearing dozens of calls were saying you don't do a contract revocation once and think you're instantly gratified for the rest of the universe. Why do people have thinking like that?
For me, they're just not serious. You just gotta, make a choice here. Vanity for me doesn't even come in, Andrew. I don't even understand the concept of vanity for that. Because it makes no sense to me. You either do it or you don't. It's an interesting thing to look at. I've never looked at it from a vanity perspective.
Let's explore it.
Yeah.
It's a big teaching for a lot of people who are trying to cross over the hump and get out of vanity into actualization of themselves.
So how is that going to work? What you're saying is it makes them feel good if they do a revocation? I think that's it?
Yeah, pretty much.
And then they can say that they've done a revocation or something?
Mm-hmm. Or share it with a friend. That defines them as spiritual for that moment.
That's interesting.
It's a red badge of vanity courage.
Uh-huh. Okay. So
let me ask the audience here to add their point of view on vanity too. What does the word vanity mean? Let's look at the definition of it. I'll look it up right now.
Yeah. To be vain, yeah. So looking good on the outside to someone, to something, yeah. Which is a total oxymoron. You're looking good on the outside, and we're talking about inner work here. So
vanity means excessive pride or admiration of one's appearance or achievements.
Yeah.
So why are you taking excessive pride over one meditation or one contract revocation of a month to define yourself as spiritual?
Okay, would that fall into a fake signature frequency match?
Yes.
What we were discussing, saying, look, I do the Bartzis work, I do whatever work, and reality is just, that could be that type of vanity.
Yes. So there's an interesting question. Do you have to do one every day? Daily practice means you set aside a certain amount of time that you get done each week. So at the end of the month, you have an aggregate of I've done this as my victory. If you do more, great. If you do less, what do you do to hold yourself accountable? One revocation should take you 15 minutes. One meditation should take you 15 minutes. If you're doing 30 minutes a month, that is not effort.
And also, I would say allow yourself to binge to a certain extent. Okay. So I'm a bit of a binger, to be honest. And, I used to judge myself for that a lot. But when I go through certain phases, I do a lot. I might listen to a revocation, I don't know, 5 times. And then I allow myself, a few days where I recover from that. And then once you've allowed yourself to do that, then you become a bit more, balanced in things like that, and you do it more regularly. So it's really a matter of acknowledging who you are and how you work. And then the spiritual work, I don't even call it spiritual work, the self development work, that self-realization work, is just like anything else. Look at how you work in your job or something, and then apply that.
So what about those people that binge 6 hours and then do nothing for 2 months? Is that the same thing?
No, that obviously doesn't work. But when I say binge, I say binging for a day and then maybe have 2 days off, because I'm a bit of an intensive person. I do.
So is watching radio shows, binging on radio shows 12 hours, 15 hours sacred work?
I would almost say to a certain extent it can be. If you're taking notes, serious notes, yes. If you're not, it is just instant gratification. If you're taking notes. Yeah, and again, I have to say, I'm doing this naturally. I would never watch anything without taking notes. I have, packs of those booklets where I've written. And sometimes you want to take notes, handwritten notes, and sometimes I just type it out on the computer.
So if you're not taking notes and just binging and binging and binging and binging, it's instant gratification, vanity stuff. If you're actually taking notes on whatever it is that you're doing, that spiritual work, you are advancing your process, and you can consider that a part of your daily practice. But binging in general is not balancing yourself. It's just saying you have time where you decided to not be bored and you picked up a pencil and made some notes. How effective are those notes, though? I see many people who show me their notepads where it's a half a sentence and full pages of doodle, 14 sentences and 5 pages of doodle. What are you note taking in your doodling versus what the sentences that you write down?
Yeah. Well, to give you an example, if I the shows that we've done so far, I actually go the next day and I transcribe the shows.
And what do you get out of transcription? Because I tell people all the time, if you are truly looking for the AA stick and the stickers and the extra credit, transcribe a show.
It's invaluable. And even, because there's so many things that when you transcribe them, you start cognitizing them, you bring them from that light memory into your, chemical memory almost, it's incredible. And then also I've printed them out now, these notes, and I got them in the morning when I wake up. It's almost like I look at them. Mm-hmm. I call that binging. Okay. I call that refreshing the energy so that you can download more of it. Okay, so maybe I'm not a binger then.
No, you're not binging, because your daily practice is taking the cognition and getting more cognition and more cognition and more cognition out of it. Now this sets up how many, I'm going to ask the question of the audience, how many people here right now in this audience go down to the chat room? When's the last time you read a book? An actual book? I have been getting in my private sessions people who haven't read books in 20 years, 15 years.
Is it okay to read about 5 at the same time?
Yeah. So we got some people here saying reading one now. Is there anyone that's going to admit that? I know there's somebody in this chat room right now, I know for a fact, that hasn't read a book. Yeah, Rabowski, I stopped. Is there anyone here that hasn't read a book in 5 years? Yes. Takara. Why? Takara Brown, why haven't you read a book in years? Reading a book is not internet, Facebook, etc., etc. Actually reading a book. What does reading a book mean, Martina, versus reading a 6-minute Facebook post or an article that's 3 pages?
Yeah, well, I think just having discussed the topic of commitment, it's a form of commitment to read a book, to actually allow yourself to go through the entire thread, all the way to the end.
It also sharpens your contemplation, comprehension skills. That you have to stick with something that takes 20 hours to read.
Yes.
Which makes you a far more cognitive and precognitive person in the moment.
Okay. So let's talk about that a little bit.
How many times have you read a book and you know what's coming, not from foreshadowing?
Mm-hmm.
The energy of the book. The energy of the author. The story. The characters.
So are you actually an advocate of reading it? Let's say you read a book halfway and you lost the energy of it, and would you say you gotta finish it?
No. Pick up
No.
another one. Pick
Exactly.
up. It's still getting the endurance game of sharpening comprehension skills and being able to stick with something that you're not done within 6 minutes. The world is programmed on 30, 60, and 90-second bits.
Yes. Yes.
You go to any news article, it's timed to not take you longer than 90 seconds to read. Why?
Yeah, well, it's that old, instant gratification.
Well, no, they're trying to sell you something in between. They set you up where your consciousness is raising and raising, sell you at the high thing, drop you back down, read you back up. Same thing in network television. You don't go longer than 11 minutes without a commercial. Okay? Because if you were to stay focused without commercials, what would happen? We would begin to expect good writing and not get away with laugh tracks that don't actually have laughing moments in them.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing about reading, let's say a spiritual book like Dancing the Dream by Jamie Sams. I've recommended this book over and over again. How many people have read that book here in the chat room? It's a hard read. Martina, have you read that book?
I'm not sure.
Dancing the Dream, Seven Sacred Paths of Transformation. This is the book this is the book I call it is the hardest and easiest read out there. Because your programs are assaulted by the amount of change you can have in every word. And it is the commitment to get through because your programs are assaulted every word you go through. But every time you take the assault of the programs as it's helping me deprogram myself, you get this vast layers of wisdoms revealed to you.
It's a bit like my book, isn't it? People should read my book.
Well, why don't you plug your book?
I'm plugging my book right now. It's called Synchronistic. And it is a commitment read. If you get through it, get it. If you get through it, let me know, because I've had lots of people buy it and they do love the pictures because the pictures are amazing. My niece made them and it's a very interesting read. Yeah, it's not easy, but that's where you can learn how to commit reading.
So I'm going to take it to the next level now. So many people, when I put out a 9-page contract revocation, oh my God, it's 9 pages, 3,500 words. And then they realized I added 3 more parts to it and it made it a 9,000 word revocation or 8,000 word revocation. And that was the Union and Communion consciousness strike. Now, when I put that out, there was this backlash at the poser personalities, who basically said, I can't comprehend it, I can't understand it, even though it's all the same terminology I've talked about over and over and over and over and over again. And this is to prove my point about reading comprehension skills versus out loud reading comprehension skills. When you listen to yourself read out loud, what are you discovering about yourself?
That was a question, obviously, to me, yeah. But there's a lot going on because you know, you with your frequency, with your harmony, with your vibration. So there's a lot going on the unseen, and on the seen level. I mean, for me, because I do read, especially those revocations, you got to read them aloud. What I have to do, because again, you know, lots of those words, I'm not a native English speaker, so I am constantly on Google to find out what are the words, what do they actually mean, you know. So for me, it's but I love that type of stuff, you know, and I don't expect everyone to enjoy linguistics the way I do. You know what I mean?
Or linguistics the way I do. I like to be a wordsmith, to combine words to make you think, to put you in a moment where you have to process what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. And then, you know, as soon as I have this one word, I look it up in the thesaurus. So what other words can I use, you know, to describe the same thing? And of course, it's like, because we're using words that are not abused. There's so many in any language where the words are abused. And every time you go into that coding, you actually lose the expansiveness of the writing.
Beautiful. Now, the next thing that I want to bring up is we've talked about commitment, vanity, practice. We've touched on the solstice that's coming up. Everyone in the chat room, who plans on actually doing something for the solstice? How many are going to actually do it? We've got a lot of people saying yes, 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 yes. How many are actually going to do it? And is it going to be more than 25 minutes? Is a 25-minute summer solstice ceremony enough? Let me ask you that, Martina.
I would say no. I would actually say, if you ask me the question, what am I doing? I have just doing the shows with you is part of my preparation for the solstice.
Same with me. Now, recently I've been asked to do another summer solstice show, and I don't want to. I want this to be my summer solstice for me. Mm-hmm. So why do I need to broadcast every summer solstice and say the same thing over and over and over and over and over again?
Don't you have one in your library for people to
Three.
Well, here you go.
But they're addicted to the live solstice because it replaces theirs.
Yes. Oh yeah. That's that open back door. Yeah.
Right.
That's that open back door. Let somebody else do it for me. I even pay for it, but I don't want to take responsibility. I don't want to make that enthusiastic effort to do it for myself. And to be honest, I absolutely know what that is like. I have done that a lot for myself until I finally started to close those back doors. So ask yourself, anybody ask yourself that question. How many back doors do you have open not to commit to your spiritual practice?
Pow.
Yeah.
That's an Austrian right hook.
And it's a pain in the ass question because it's a tough one, because you really got to start looking at yourself. I've hated that question from the very beginning, and I had to ask myself over, and I still ask myself, because as soon as you reach the one level of consciousness, if you wish, awareness, the next one is already calling you in.
And if you're always having back doors open, what does that really mean about your spiritual practice? It's hollow.
And you know what's interesting? I remember going networking years ago. When I walked into the room, I always made sure I sat close to the exit, because I knew when I had enough, I needed to get out.
Mm-hmm. You were giving your programs authority to take authority.
Exactly. So what I would suggest is, if that rings a bell for you, that you could have a couple of back doors, but actually look, how does it manifest in the physical reality here? How do you actually, when you interact with people, you know? And then, because sometimes people go, I don't know, I don't have a back door open. Well, maybe you do, and you don't even know it.
Maybe they don't have a back door, but they have a cat door, which is the same thing.
Cat flap.
Yes.
In and out.
Exactly. You've got a secondary entrance that's not your primary. Okay. And that's that easy get out mode. That's my plan B if I don't feel the zone.
Yes. That's the judgment, guys. That's when the going gets tough. You got to get out of here. Oh, this is not for me, and la la la. Oh, I've done this. I've been there. Mm-hmm. Well, it's judgment. We were talking about judgment, and there is time for judgment outside of consciousness, but I'm talking about judgment that is limiting your choices. Because what you do with that, you're actually considerably limiting yourself constantly, and you never step into that true, authentic you.
And stepping into that true, authentic you, it's something you open the door on yourself. But many people slam the door in their authentic self face, saying no solicitations to your own self.
Yeah.
No solicitors. Solicitors will be persecuted.
Yeah. And think of it from a metaphorical perspective, you know, now with the wind and, you know, it's summer, you open the front door, you know, all other doors keep slamming around, you know, so that's why you keep the front door probably closed at times if you've got all the other doors open. So, you know, this is when I think I remember there was a time we started talking about fortifying your reality.
Mm-hmm. Big teaching I started back in 2013 about what fortifying your reality meant. Yeah. And contract revocations were the first step in learning the construction process, the most basic process of building up a paper mache wall that can be something more with all the other practices applied to it.
Yeah. So that fortifying your reality, that was something I needed to look up. What fortify, what does that actually mean? And then, you know, obviously reality and to relate it to my practice, and also related to what was it that I wanted to create. And it comes with we also need a certain level of clarity. That doesn't mean that you're attached to any outcome, so you're constantly planning and goal setting and stuff, but you need to have a certain level of clarity. What is it that you want to create in your life?
And this is where so many people can't truly cognify what they want in their life. Spirituality is such an all-encompassing process, and lack of reading skills and comprehension skills doesn't allow them to perceive the big journey ahead of them and make small little steps. Healing is a process, not an event. I say that over and over again. The same thing with your spirituality. It is a process, not an event. There may be a series of events that define the new processes, but there's still processes in between each event that help you advance yourself into opening the door on your authentic self and not slamming it in your own face. Inviting it in for more than a cup of tea.
And those processes are facilitated through choices. Lots and lots of different choices. Like we said, what is consciousness? It's choice. Constantly choosing. And also coming out of the definition, what is a decision? You know, so many people get hung up. Oh, I've decided to do that. And all of a sudden there's no energy. I don't enjoy it anymore, but now I'm stuck with it. Well, what if that is the biggest lie that you've ever bought? You're not stuck with anything. You know, you just choose something different. You change, you know, and that's, you adapt.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in the chat room, you know, talking about, you know, they can't have fires where they're at. Adapt. Be a modern shaman. There's so many techniques you can use that aren't fire, but can still create the very similar energies. I say all the time, put a pot of water on your stove and get it to boil. That's steam, that's smoke. There's plenty of alchemical processes you can do with just that. Make an ancestral soup. Candles. I have always said that candles generally aren't enough until you get like 25 or 30 candles. But go out and get the good 12-hour votive candles, the ones that burn slow, and put a dish underneath them. Okay? You can do the shaman's fire, which is salt and rubbing alcohol. If you do the proper amount of salt to rubbing alcohol, it'll burn 25, 30, 40 minutes. And you can have a tremendous cleansing flame that's easy and safe. Once again, learning how to adapt to the moment and not allow the self-defeating habit patterns to not create anything in the moment.
Yeah, use little instruments, you know, if you want. Just play an instrument. Incense, you know, all of that, all these little bits and pieces. Write yourself a little prayer. Use it for being creative. Even if you just sit in front of a candle, make this your you time. I am committing to myself by doing that. It's all about that.
That's conscious application of the sacred.
With
Once
enthusiastic
again,
effort.
And that enthusiastic effort is not mystical.
No, it's not mystical. You know, this is the thing. When I working with you, I've taken all the mystical out, to be honest, taken spirituality out of it all. And then what really started to happen was the mystical, the magic became a result of doing the very hands-on commitment work.
Mm-hmm. And that hands-on commitment work is the byproduct is the magic of life. That's
it. This is the magic. If you're starting to commit to yourself and actually do what you say you're going to do without all this vanity business and things like that, then the true magic comes in. That's when you're, pre-cox, post-cognitive workforce, all the agents starting to work, all the synchronicities starting to happen, and you start functioning from that celestial medium.
That journey into being a celestial medium, so many people, they want it at the very beginning of their experience, and they try to force it and force it and force it, which can create all sorts of issues on the spiritual path. What advice do you have to people to stop forcing experiences?
Take out the spirituality. Take out all the old paradigm of what spirituality supposedly is. That's what I started doing. I've never called myself spiritual. I've never really, not even before I met you, done a lot of that spirit, but it can be so misleading you in the wrong direction, because it's the embodiment. We're talking about embodied spirituality. This is what the true magic brings. Not that floating out of your body. I think the biggest realization for me was that how little time we spend in our bodies when we go into this spirituality bullshit that's got nothing to do with what we're actually trying to achieve here.
And
I think we just lost him there. Robert, have we lost Andrew? Yeah. I always say to people, I don't know if you can hear me now, if we all stopped. I always say to people, if you're breathing, you're spiritual. And then you take it from there. Okay, just not Andrew. Okay, cool. Yeah. Because just having a body, having chosen to be in this reality on this planet Earth, you know, this is what spirituality is all about, making the most out of this.
Hi, Martina. Just to let you know, you're still on. Andrew will be back in a second.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm just reading a couple of those. If you guys have any questions, just throw them in. And we can just chat a little bit along those lines. Earth Central Sun. Yeah. Is more relevant in these times. On sprites. Got to get used to reading all these things. How do you up your level of responsibility? Well, that's a very individual, I think, question. It's different for all of us. And I think it's one of those things where you've got to ask yourself again, what is it that you want to create? You know, like, and then that will determine how much effort, how much enthusiastic effort you got to put into that. And I always look at, by clearing all your programs and by letting go of all your limitations and everything that is holding you back, you automatically start to actually bring your responsibility closer to the level of your awareness. How do you unprogram once? Do we struggle with getting overwhelmed? Yes, I think we all do. And this is why, you know, breaking it down, we talked about this, I think, in the other shows, where it's like you kind of come back into the present moment and you just ask yourself, what is required right now? What can I choose right now? And not be attached to the outcome. I think the overwhelm very much comes in when we're starting to be too attached to an outcome, to a specific outcome. This is where we really start to limit ourselves and go into judgment. What else we got? What can I do right now? Exactly. What can I do right now? And then there's a tool. I've been an Access practitioner, so there's a great tool which we called light and heavy. So when you're choosing something and it feels really light and it feels really joyful, then carry on choosing that, choosing the next level of that. When it starts, sometimes, you know, you start feeling heavy, then there might be an indication that this is not for you to choose right now. And it doesn't mean that you never need to choose it, but it could just mean that maybe now is not the time. So lots of people come with procrastination, motivation issues and stuff like that. And I always, you know, say to them, so just ask yourself, is now the time? I'm not a big list fan, but whatever, you can just jot down a couple of things. And if it's not for today, well, then ask the same question again. Ask it for tomorrow.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. We are having an odd internet day over here. My internet has been dropping periodically on and off all day long today. Now, I am a list person, but I'm also a not list person. When I know that I need to hold myself accountable, I make a list. And then I look at all these leftover lists that I didn't discipline myself to follow through on. And then I go through and I look at all the lists and go, what are pointless stuff on the list? And that's why I didn't do it in the first place, because my list didn't really mean anything to me.
Exactly. And yet it's a fabulous tool to actually look at what you want to create. And as I said early on, is like, you don't have to choose it, you know, and you don't have to choose it in the moment. But it might come in handy that you brought it up at another stage.
Okay. So lists are both overwhelming things and underwhelming things. You've got to be able to have a true rate on what's on the list. Example, if you're doing a shopping list and you're out of toilet paper and you don't put toilet paper on the shopping list and you're in the checkout line and go, wow, I've got no toilet paper left at home, but there's a row of 5 people behind you. Are you going to stop and say, hold on, I got to run back and get toilet paper? Or are you going to check out and leave and not get toilet paper? The same thing applies to our deep spiritual things we're avoiding. Example, like those people who have breakages in their faith and aren't acknowledging it. You are the person who's out of toilet paper at home and checking out in the line and not going back and getting the toilet paper and coming back in line.
Yeah.
Okay. Many people right now who we say are in the vanity section are only practicing once a month or twice every 3 months. They have a breakage in faith on themselves. At some level, the integrity in their faith, the integral parts of it that are interwoven with them are no longer interwoven with them. For some reason, faith has been removed from their signature frequency.
Okay, is that because of the programming they're running?
Most of the time it is, but
Yeah.
other time it's because they just stopped advancing themselves.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the programs are what do that. The programs are trying to create a homeostasis state of not changing.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to ask you a question here, because on the last Zoom, you were saying that we were talking about celestial medium, okay? The simultaneous living, simultaneous, the I am, the finite, and the infinite I am. So we're taking the celestial code from the source, we're bringing it into the bodies, we're processing it there, manifesting, responding to that coding, and then we're going to let it go again. Okay? That's the way you described it. And you said that twice, that it's quite important to not maintain that celestial coding, that information in the body. Okay? So what I figured with that is, this is how we sometimes create unconsciousness, because we're receiving information, we are responding to it, and then we're retaining that information that can create unconsciousness instead of letting it go again. And that could be part of us creating those limitations. Can you say a little bit about that?
So the journey into accepting higher frequency, higher density information is to bring it in the body, to unpack and uncode it. And once you've unpacked and uncoded, you have the data at your density frequency level. You then take the packed information, pack it back up, and give it back out the crown chakra to the original source, which is the frequency pattern of the universe that's around us. You are in a DNA instrument of experience that is here now. You're not up there. It will create distortion within you if you hold on to it. There are a lot of channelers that start out great, but end up corrupted because they don't let go of the information. They hoard it.
They hoard it, they retain it, which then creates distortions or unconsciousness, if you wish, in the bodies, right?
As well as possession, because that information is manifested here in the now, and there are external sources who want to possess the body that is hoarding that. That is a treasure hoard of packed data in which they will dissolve the information into energy itself and feed on the energy of the treasure, not the information.
Exactly. Now, could you say something a little bit more in terms of how much is that a conscious effort to let that information go?
It's 100% conscious effort. You
So
actually
what
have
does that
to go.
actually? Yeah.
You actually have to go through the process of, I'm packing this information back up, knowing full well that I cannot hold on to it. That's 2 sets of choices, and then releasing it back to the universe. 3rd choice. There's 3 choices to that process that confirms and affirms and reminds why you can't hold on to it.
Okay, so that would be a different energy to the programs that we're running.
Right. The programs don't understand the damage of the information or the lure and attraction factor of the external sources who will come and abuse it.
Mhm. So I actually think this is a really important point to mention here, because we're doing all of that, I think, so much in unconsciousness, or at least I have, to a certain extent.
An extent, but when you're dealing with really advanced subject matters and you're truly on the edge of the unknown, you've got to let yourself process. Like there was a mentorship call we had a couple weeks back where I had to remind you, you have to learn it first before you can immediately reteach it.
Mm-hmm.
That is a program a lot of people have. They try to learn it and teach it at the same time to others.
Absolutely.
You can't do that. And remember I said is once you've done it, the first draft, second draft, third draft, then you can shortcut with linguistics.
Yeah. So this is where, think of all of you guys who are running those teacher programs. Yeah. And I come from a teacher soul family. So all my guys in my family are teachers. So in different arenas, obviously, but whoever runs that teacher program, who wants to actually get the information and immediately teach it, it is a limitation. It is a limitation.
It's a destructive limitation because
Yes.
You're not allowing yourself to actually learn it. You're lowering your own information down for others.
Yeah.
So you're not understanding
Absolutely.
it at your level. You're understanding at the levels you're teaching it to.
You are absolutely, because you are processing it so in chunks, in smaller chunks for people to get it. So you're actually not allowing yourself to have the blissful experience.
So Nicola said, but you don't actually learn more and understand if you try to teach it, ? Correct. You have to learn and relearn it, experience and re-experience before you can teach it to others.
You can only teach it when you understand it. Not necessarily. It's beyond understanding. It's beyond understanding for me. It's not necessarily a cognitive thing. It's more like an experiential thing. You can teach it once you've experienced it.
As long as the experience is finished. There are
Yes.
many teachings that are many experiences combined to make one master experience. And this is where the teacher souls get caught over and over again. The experience isn't done.
This is where the teacher limits, that's for me, that's my experience, where the teacher limits him or herself by doing that in order to prepare it bit by bit for whoever wants to get it.
So Latoya asks, what do you do when your teacher is running the loop? Stop it. Recognize it in the moment. Why do you have to teach now? Is it an addiction? In most scenarios, it's an addiction to reteach something immediately to others. There's a need to be heard.
The need to be heard, yes.
Yeah, a need to be needed.
Need to be needed, yeah. It's a bit like the old Malta program, but in a very different disguise, very hidden.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, guilty.
The need to be needed is taking high frequency and immediately saying, I'm emanating it by reteaching the exact words, but you are not emanating it. You are emulating a frequency that is far lower, and the teachings have far less meaning behind them. And Cardaniel, it's not teaching the unteachable. The unteachable is teachable all the time. It's you processing it into a teaching.
Yeah.
That has a lesson plan.
And it takes us back to commitment to yourself. That was my back door that I had still open. That was the back door that obviously, might open again and again and again, but at least now I'm aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I've been very grateful having these conversations with you, because I am not preparing for that. And, if I make an ass out of myself, well, that's okay. I'm going to the edge of the unknowingness to just have a conversation with you here, to actually teach myself to stay out of this teacher. I don't have to come across as the all-knowing. And it requires you to step out of your ego as well. And to allow yourself to fail. Am I allowing myself to fail? Yeah. Nobody
And
wants.
Facebook makes it very easy for people to become instantaneous reteachers. I'm going to share this great information, but I've never processed it. And most of the time, they don't even read the whole damn post.
Yes. Guilty too.
Okay.
That's
What
true.
is the
Yes.
what is the mechanics of social media reshare without reading actually doing to people who are doing it on a mass scale?
It's a watering down of their own knowingness.
It's being a poser at the highest level.
That's the vanity again. Okay. I never, as you see, I don't, yeah, okay, I get
It's
now.
vanity at the highest levels.
Mm-hmm.
It is when the ego, the vanity, and the shadow have a triumvirate of I own you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So all the vanity programs, just let them
go. Vanity goes shadow approves. Vanity goes ego approves. Therefore, I am empowered by both ego and shadow.
Yeah.
So somebody is putting in, it's lowering to mediocrity. No, you're staying at a high level, but in fact, you're enforcing mediocrity to others by mass reposting.
Okay. And there's another element now. You are actually opening yourself up to backstabbing energy and to projections.
Yep.
And expectations of others. So this is a good one for anyone to look at. By doing that, you have no idea the backlash of what other people sending towards you by actually doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Judging you for something you probably never thought of. Mm-hmm. I've had actually all my life on many, many levels. Mm-hmm. So always be aware of the projections and the expectations towards you through the actions that you are making.
The unseen judgments. Thank you, Lana. The unseen judgments in yourself and the unseen judgments of others. That is a quadruple supernatural disaster known as social media.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone's judgments are blended in with every post.
Mm-hmm.
Example, I haven't been on Facebook in probably 9 or 10 months, and I finally went back on because it was far too toxic for me to be on. The amount of people demanding free sessions, just ridiculously, no boundaries whatsoever. No boundaries whatsoever. And spirituality is all about boundaries. So how do spiritual people operate on social media effectively?
Well, that leads us into boundaries of sovereignty boundaries, which is part of the fortifying your reality. You have to have your sovereign boundaries set, and you have to know what they are.
Right. And when one responds back to a person, or example, I came back to Facebook and I immediately had to kick a person off my page because all they were doing is advertising their own crap on my page. Your right to give your free speech ends when you come to my wall. And you got to say that to yourself, everyone that's out there. Whatever rights for somebody else's free speech ends when they leave their personal Facebook page and goes to others. Which is what creates the charge and polarity from social media sharing that we are holding on to. I look at the Facebook servers, the YouTube servers, and I see, like I said, a supernatural toxic disaster zone. And I mean supernatural toxic disaster zone. And the people that work at those places, is there anyone here right now that works at YouTube or Facebook or is affiliated with any of that? I know there's a couple people listening that are, but they're not going to admit it. Anyways, you live in a toxic waste zone. Okay.
So, having said that, those are great tools, though, if you do have a business and if you do have a message that you want to share. So what can we do in order to work with it, like you do too, not get affected?
Not allowing the charge and polarity to be stored inside you. That is what the social media engines are trying to do. They're an engine of looking for tacit consent to store charge and polarity in you. And you got to go, no, 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 with such enforced rules, policies, and procedures about your borders that go, no, you're not allowed to have access through this. Just because you post a crappy ass comment about me, or you're doing this and I delete you and then you're accusing me of shadow banning you. No, I'm removing you because you're being a negative personality on my page. Next. You're irrelevant to my greater growth.
So that's called discernment, knowing when and who and how and all of that. Okay.
So Paul has said Mr. Floyd is a prime example. Yes and no. My rules, borders, policies, and procedures says there are certain subject matter that you need to share charge and polarity with, a part of the ever-evolving times. And racism worldwide is one of those subject matters that needs to be broken down, because the old guard is challenging, saying, I'm going to jump generations and be the new guard again. And will the current generations tell no to the old guard? And then when the troll energy comes, you recognize what it is and don't store that troll's energy. No, you're irrelevant to my greater growth. But you also don't see me say sign petitions. Don't do that, because that's engaging in the dirtiest trenches of stuff.
So sacred neutral perspective there, unlimited point of view, and at the same time using your sovereignty, your boundaries for discernment.
I also maintain my business space to be my business space, but my spirit is business, and the business, the spirit works through me, meaning my business must adapt to the will of spirit that's working through us all. And social media is a barometer for the very negative.
Okay.
How often is social media, rainbows and unicorns? Right? Let's look at that. Okay? Unless you're one other person that their page only curates rainbows and unicorns. But every now and then something pops in and takes your rainbow away. It's a picture of somebody abusing a cat and they want you to donate money to animal shelters. Okay? How does that seep in there?
Well, coming from can we also say that, with self-mastery and sovereign mastery, you will very quickly recognize when that happens. And then you can obviously choose not to entangle with it and just look at it as an entangled observer.
Perfect. But it's hard when you're a super empath, addicted to Facebook, and that abused animal video comes on and sets you on a rant.
Yeah.
That you can't stop.
Yeah.
What is that doing to the person when they're on a rant that can't stop? What is that doing to what kind of psychic damage?
Well, it's activating all the internal demons, and then they start interacting with the external demons, and it lowers your frequency, your vibration, your harmony, and it puts you back into limitation and takes you off. Well, it depends what track you're on, but it takes you off you creating the life that you actually want to create. And
then it gives you a dopamine release from the negative experience. That's the insidious of social media. As soon as somebody hits like or comments onto it, dopamine release, dopamine release, dopamine release. Yeah. Your pleasure center has been activated by the abuse of an animal and you social justice championing for it.
Yes, but that type of dopamine release, it drags you quite down. Once you come off it, you are double exhausted from that. because it's depleting your energy rather than bringing you into that.
But they don't realize
state.
it. They don't realize it.
Okay.
Thus, why social media engines are mass harvesting scenarios for most people. Now, as soon as you see plenty of people that apply their security features and stuff where the social media engine doesn't have very much effect on them. There are plenty of millennials that have figured it out. The boomers haven't. They're wide open. Wide open.
So let's talk about boundaries.
Boundaries. Enforcing one's boundaries. Let's take it out of the social media scenario. If you're in a home living situation where one person has no boundaries and another person is trying to create boundaries, and your boundaries are constantly infringed on, and the other person does not want to listen to you whenever you're trying to use logical communication, that person is abusing you. What do you do when your boundaries are constantly being disrespected and this person's trying to create argument with you? You have to learn to flip the frequencies on them and saying,
Yes.
every time you violate my boundary, let's say you didn't do your dishes or you left your laundry in the dryer for 4 days and you didn't respect somebody else, or whatever the scenario is, where you expect somebody's expecting somebody else to do all their work for them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is a proper response to defining your boundaries? Something creative that isn't vengeance, that isn't also storing charge and polarity for later action.
Mm-hmm. Well, in my experience, going into the sacred neutral takes the wind out of their sails. And I always say, you don't resist, you don't react, you don't align, you don't agree. You do not have a conversation along those lines. It's almost like a frequency, vibration, harmony reaction, more like you just like look at them, give them, one of those looks or something, or you just walk away.
Mm-hmm.
You do not entangle through trying to understand where they're coming from, because that's one of the biggies, which we do, which I have done for many, many years. And you just acknowledge what is happening right now. Who am I actually talking to? Am I talking to an internal program here? Because the person is no longer in their bodies anyway. The I am has long time left the vagus nerve, and they're now just being, you're talking to the demon here. And then it's a choice. Do you want to keep on having a conversation with the program, or you walk away? And at some stage, you obviously got to look at, what is this? What is the purpose for me to actually entertaining a relationship like that?
Now, most people are in a trapped scenario financially that keeps them stuck in those scenarios. But there are other people that aren't trapped financially, but are afraid to be alone.
Yeah, there's a multitude of reasons why these people, but again, we're saying the same thing over and over again. It goes back to self-mastery, to emotional mastery, to looking at your self-nurturing, to self-healing. And if you're not committed to that, well, then you have to that's where you're going to end up. You're going to end up in an abusive relationship. You can out-create that. What does out-creation mean?
Exactly. I pose that to the audience now. What does out-creation really mean? The next journey here is you guys have to take this to the next level. Those that are listening live right now, those that are listening as a future audience coming in, what does that mean? One aspect is you got to make them irrelevant to your greater growth, which means you have mastered the capacity to not hold their charge and polarity and to argue with their debating programs.
Okay, so here's the question for what you just said, what Andrew just said. Here's the question. Very simple question. Am I willing to lose that person? Could be the mom, could be the dad, could be the husband, could be the daughter, the cat, it doesn't matter. Ask yourself the question, am I willing to lose that person? That doesn't mean that you have to kill them or run them over or anything, but you have to energetically disengage, make them irrelevant to the level of being willing to lose them out of your life energetically. And as you energetically do that, that's when this irrelevance comes in. And what does that mean again? You have to commit to yourself. Why are people not willing to lose others? Because they're too dependent on them.
Or have a codependent relationship.
Exactly.
Now, it's fair to say that the majority of people that aren't applying themselves to conscious application of the sacred, that aren't doing their daily practice, are in a codependent relationship where one of the other sides doesn't approve of spirituality. Now, the other side of that is they're not in any relationship at all, but they're codependent on themselves to agree that they can do it. And oftentimes, as soon as there's one dissenting internal self, nothing gets done.
Yeah, and I'd actually like to add to that is they are not in a relationship with themselves at all. Because
Right.
if they would be in a relationship with themselves, there would be no need for a codependent relationship.
That's right.
And the outcreation of that is once you start having a relationship with yourself. And I always, the way I worked through this was I looked at my male and I looked at my female, left side, right side of the body. I did a lot of work with male, female. And then, realizing, that how underdeveloped was the female, how overdeveloped was the male, or the other way around. So there's masses of things out there you can do to get that male-female balance right.
Mm-hmm.
And then start having that relationship with yourself, and then everything else becomes a co-creation, our choice.
So when people are stuck in these situations, circumstance is what erodes faith and eventually breaks it down. Circumstance you can get out of at any time from any of the topics we just talked about. Circumstance does not rule your environment. You allow it to rule.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you're having troubles with family members, you can go on that journey of the self, make them irrelevant to your greater growth, do your daily practice, and not allow any of their projections to affect you. But because you already have so much stored charge and polarity for this debate and argument from 1985 and this fight from 1974 and this particular, family argument at Thanksgiving in 1999, you have all these situations that have stacked charge and polarity from so many arguments and debates that never went through the forgiving process. So if you have issues with a family member and you're stuck with them right now and the circumstances running you, start with the forgiveness and letting go of the charge and polarity so you can be on that path to making them irrelevant to your greater growth. Because if you don't have the charge and polarity, there is no match for the continuing debates and arguments.
Exactly. That's out-creation, really, as far as I'm concerned.
It's strategical out-creation.
Spiritual, strategy to change your signature frequency or to, really step into your signature frequency so that others don't stick, they just can't stick.
Okay.
There's wind in the sails anymore, because you're not engaging with it. And, it's quite, once you start integrating that, you can actually be so grateful for having them in your life, because it's once you have out-created that, it's almost like you can see them for who they are, for the choices they make, and their choices do no longer impact on your choices.
Okay. So somebody put up a really good one. What about Trump? What about him? Does Trump permeate your reality 24/7, 365 because he's the president? No. Propaganda and global narrative wants you to tacitly accept that into him into your reality and all of the subject matters of debate he represents. That's the nature of the global narrative. You could replace Trump with any other personality and it'd be the same thing. Anyone that's being projected at you, you can say no to and make them irrelevant to your greater growth.
Yep.
So many people are caught in the hypercharge and hyperbole and hyper rhetoric of politics. And that's an example of distorted high frequency weaponry. They are weapons at that level.
And how is that? How can politics be a backdoor?
It doesn't need to be a backdoor. It will attack your boundaries, look for a weakness, and make a breach and a beachhead into you.
Yeah, okay. So what I was trying to say was that if you're using it as a backdoor, it will have a hold on you. It's saying, oh, I cannot be who I am. I cannot be happy with that because Trump is doing what he's doing.
But it's not a back door. It's a front door because you're constantly letting the information get fed with new charge and polarity from watching the news sources. Yes. Now, if it comes in a back door, let's say you've blocked it all out and all of a sudden something comes up that's political that reactivates it in you. It's just saying you still have stored charge and polarity deep in your inner core, which made the activation very high frequency, which distorts your boundaries once again.
Yeah. And maybe we can say something on this, reaction, because what I've been finding is that sometimes intensity is required in order to deal with something. So very often, people, when you're dealing with demons, internal demons and programs, there has to be a certain intensity that you have to match. That doesn't mean that you have to stay there. So, it's for people who feel that they're judging themselves because they're still having like an intense reaction. That doesn't mean it's how long you're staying in there.
That journey into staying present through an extended debate, and I'll use this as an example: Thanksgiving Day dinner or Christmas Day dinner, and you have the person that constantly only wants to talk about politics, and it doesn't matter what country you're in. Everyone has the family member that does that. They're trying to rule a conversation instead of truly learning about other people. Okay, yeah. And if you react to them and you show charge and polarity, you show your other side, you're choosing a side. And I've said, once you chose a side that isn't yours, you've already lost the game. So when you have a family member that's trying to do that, or you're that family member, I guarantee there's somebody that's that family member listening right now, you are forcing them, you're forcing yourself to be relevant to their reality. That's stepping on their journey. When we actively choose not to step on others' journeys, what are we doing? Holding our moral ground. Oftentimes, debates are this give and take of moral ground. There are certain morals that can adjust and adapt, positive or negative, to who's in the room.
Yeah.
Okay? Recently, there was a Navy captain that was calling his wife via Facebook FaceTime, and he didn't realize he was live streaming it. He was on Facebook Live to his whole group, and he was using some really bad racist words, and his wife was too. And they broadcasted for 35 minutes before they both realized they were live.
Oh, no.
Now, guess what? When you are in the home and you are venting between two adult people, that doesn't make them racist. It makes them venters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That happens between couples all the time. Couples say the worst shit to each other and about others. Why? Because it helps them get rid of the charge and polarity.
Exactly. That's what I mean when I say intensity.
Yes.
Of that charge and polarity. This is why the F word sometimes comes in so handy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get rid of, yeah.
That's why I use it on the show all the time, even if it doesn't monetize every fucking show. Boop, demonetized.
And to be honest, I used to work in the oil industry for almost 20 years, and it was a survival tool for me. I didn't know that at the time. what I actually did at the time to really disperse all this charge and polarity constantly by using the F word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then it integrates into your everyday personality, and you come across somebody who's offended by one word like shit. Oh my God, my ears are burning through hell because you said shit followed by fuck.
Yeah, yeah. And also, you know, because it's not, you know, my native language, so I think it was so much easier for me to get away with it too, you know.
Yes, but you Austrians have your own poetry of swearing too. Every culture does.
Jawohl.
Jawohl.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's delve into swearing in general, Martina.
Oh God. Yeah, okay. So, well, swearing for me, as I said, amazing tool to discharge that polarity and that charge, to bring the point across, but equally so, this is fucking amazing. I'm having so much fun, you know, so you can use it in a blissful state. It helps to disperse the anger, obviously. It helps to really sometimes get somebody's attention.
Okay. I want everyone that's in the chat room right now to write in their favorite swear word combinations. Dipshit. Okay. Clusterfuck. Ball bag. Fucktard. Fucking shit. Fuckity fuck fuck fuck. That's Bajan. I know what it is.
Fuck knows.
Okay. Dick waffle. That's a new one.
God, there's so many episodes.
I always include Jesus. Yes. Many Mediterranean cultures have an affinity with Jesus and the Virgin Mary in various sexual positions. To the point when you actually translate it, you're like, what the hell are they doing? Poor Virgin Mary and Jesus. Okay. So I want everyone to make their own, for their summer solstice, a swearing invocation. Okay.
Embodied spirituality.
Through the use of swear words.
Fantastic.
Okay. And take pleasure and joy out of it.
Take out of it.
Take
out of it. Yeah.
Take out of it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fucking homework assignment. That's right.
But maybe you want to do this the ceremony by yourself, not really invite all your spiritual friends, because it might go down the wrong way.
How is it going to be? I, in this ever-present fucking moment of the now, choose to shit all over my reality that's negative, throw turds at the negative demons and set them on fire, and stab them with a spear in the heart as they go on the corner and rub the shit in their face.
Oh, God.
Is that charge and polarity?
I think as soon as you add your humor, you know, you can turn and flip and out-create the frequency.
Exactly. That's why the lines are so blurred with choice.
Yes. Yes. Well, yeah. Depends how you define choice again. It's one of those things. For me, choice is it allows me to be and do whatever I need to be and do. But then that requires trust and no hesitation and doubt and no judgment.
Right. So Martina, you want to take some callers?
Yeah, let's take some callers. Yeah.
All right. So if you are here currently in the chat room and want to be a caller, go on down to the participants button, click raise your hand. And this is not a what's my motherfucking purpose question. Okay. So any of you that have not been listening for the last hour and 24 minutes and suddenly come on and they're taking calls and you want to hear galactic history, fuck off.
And no fucking stories, please.
Right. And if you're just going to babble for the first couple minutes, we're going to hang up on you. Ha. See who's lowering their hands now.
Oh God, I didn't see that going this way, but hey, on the edge of unknowingness, right?
On the edge of unknowingness. Now
Good.
that everyone's ready, all right, Robert, spin up with a wheel of fucking callers and see what the fucking universe has in store for us.
Okay. Fuck. I don't know who to fucking choose. I think Dr. Coretta fucking B.
Dr. Coretta, are you there?
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing today? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Andrew. I'm calling from Jamaica. I'm cracking up here.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What have we cracked you up the most about?
Well, I mean, I feel like something has lifted because my job is so high stress.
No.
So pretty much hearing all of this fucking cursing is crazy.
Fantastic.
You know, I work with kids a lot, so I really have to be boundary central a lot with people and clients. So just being in an area where I can share and just be unleashed is good.
Ah, good word. So
Yes.
let's unleash your consciousness. And what question do you have for us?
Wow. For me, I think it's mainly maintenance, Andrew. I've been listening to your programs a while. I've been following probably for the past 2 years. And so it's about maintenance in listening, having to interact with these online sites is also, I'm there every day because I interact with clients and their psychology. So just staying in the zone, maintaining. Any feedback you have on that?
So maintaining becomes a chore after a while.
Right.
And the journey meant to maintaining is an ever evolving journey into not allowing the charge and polarity of others to be stored in yourself. So when you have a rigid structure, it can be a massive limitation to the future for you. And you got to turn your radio off in the background.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get
It's okay.
back.
Yeah. That ultimate journey of not over control, the ultimate journey of not over controlling your reality. Because you work with children and you work with professionals, you have to have a different set of boundaries for each one. And you've got to shift from one set of boundaries to another set of boundaries on a regular basis every day. And sometimes these boundaries get blurred. Therefore,
cold.
Yes, this is where you have to look at the boundary itself and write it down and ask the boundary as an aspect of yourself. Say, boundary that I've created as an aspect of myself. What is your purpose and what limitations are you creating that I am allowing? And you must do this on a regular basis. Example, ask right now to yourself, the aspect of yourself that deals with children and your boundaries. What are your limitations? Boundary that is the aspect of myself. What are your limitations on me now? And what do you get from your boundary when dealing with children?
I think when I think about that, it's a space that just allows a particular type of freedom. In interaction, if you think about a tree, it's easier to prune the tree and interact with it when it's younger. And so then with the preconceived issues.
What is the limitation of that boundary?
I can go so far and no more. There's a point at which I have to write.
Because they are that young, I cannot use the fullness of my genius.
Right.
That is a limitation. And by acknowledging it alone, you have changed the parameters of the boundary to allow more of your genius in at unique moments with unique situations.
Right.
This child is far more advanced than a 9-year-old. Therefore, I need my full educated self to deal with this one child in this one situation, and my boundary will no longer limit me.
Yes, I find that that happens sometimes, but rarely. And I have to, there's a switch that goes on because the child might ask a question, or just how they're interacting is such an adult level in terms of they're interacting. It forces me to step out of that limitation.
Correct. Now, another side of when you regularly look at your boundaries and ask what the limitations are, you then say, what are the advantages? You start with the limitation, and then you go, what are the advantages to this boundary dealing with children?
I'm writing. I have to remember. Remember.
So now let's switch. When you're in a professional adult setting, what are your boundaries limiting you with your professional adult setting? What are their limitations?
Limitations of consciousness, socialization,
Fear of judgment.
Yes, expectation, the same pair judgment, expectations in how you should and shouldn't behave, flexibility of decisions. So for example, if the difference between really helping somebody to resolve as opposed to having to operate within the strictures of what you do, but then it might mean coming out of those strictures to really help somebody on a full scale in a holistic way. And so that's a constant navigation.
Okay. So I want to bring Martina in here to add more to what we just talked about.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, my experience with that has always been, working with children in particular, has always been in getting out of that control space, because I look at everything as a bit of a judgment there, and go to allowance. And actually, one of the best tools, and I've said that before, is really when you work with children, is actually asking them, treating them almost like as an adult, you know, treating them for whatever they present themselves at, and bring them back into their knowingness and give the responsibility back to them by asking them a question. When you get stuck with anyone, be this now a child, but children are even faster, and you just them a question that allows them to step back into their knowingness, totally empowers them, and it takes you out of controlling everything.
Right. And
you know, as teachers, as educators, I always look at myself as a facilitator more than a teacher, because we all have to make our own choices and take responsibility for the change. That's comes from a healing perspective. You know, as a healer, I facilitate the healing depending on the level of allowance and awareness and responsibility taking off the client. Always coming from that, you're not really needing to control anything. You just really give the power back to the child.
Okay, yes, agreed. I do try to practice that, but then I have to navigate between adults to leaders, and so it's almost like a forgetting that happens because I have to respond.
Yes. Another thing, when we're talking about boundaries, there, another thing I always do is be on a daily basis, when you're finished with your day, before you go to bed, all the decisions and judgment conclusions that you've made throughout the day, just destroy them, let them go, so that next day when you come back in, you're almost starting from scratch again.
Right.
So the programming is all gone, and then you can go straight into that. Okay, so where we are today, what is happening today? That's very much taking you back into the frequency, the vibration, and the harmony, and taking you out of chemical sort of processing of emotions.
Right. I find that I'm more effective in that zone.
Yes.
That journey to what Martina said, something very important, that journey into destroying and uncreating the boundaries and their limitations each and every day is an advanced level, as an advanced part of self-practice, self-healing, self-nurturing, conscious application of the sacred. It's not something beginners do because they don't understand what it really does until they've done it on such a regular basis that they realize how much they can transform and transmute their reality by constantly uncreating and destroying those preconceived debts and judgments of debts.
Right, right. I thank you. It's an empowering space, and I'm reminded to stay there. Sometimes it's difficult because your humanity gets involved. I have 2 grown kids, and life takes over. But I find that I'm most effective in that space. And if I'm in session with anybody, I have to be in that space. It's very important. It's almost like I have to be opaque and transparent because the information has to flow through, so it flows back to them and help them.
So what if you don't have to? What if that is your state of beingness? Yeah? What if that's who you are? What if you could just take the have to out? What if there's no should and have to? That's just who you actually are, aren't you?
I think that's my biggest challenge right now, because I flow in so many roles and I have to interface with these spaces daily. So that's why it's very, very freeing to just listen and be here.
I want you to know you're already a professional at being yourself.
Yes.
Thank you.
Remind yourself of that every day. You don't need to put effort in to making yourself who you are. You're already doing it every day.
Yeah.
And it might be a very good idea for you to follow Martina's words there and not have to be that person. You already are. You are already worthy of it. You already followed through and done the big work to get to where you're at.
Right. Right.
You don't need the alter ego to turn on to do sessions.
Right.
I had to learn that a long time ago, to not allow the skill to be me. I am the skill. It was a byproduct of who I am. The same with you.
Yes, yes. That resonates deeply.
Okay. Thanks a lot for calling in. You were very, very good caller. All right, Robert, let's spin up the wheel of fucking callers and see who the universe has for us fucking next.
All righty. The next effing caller is Karen.
Karen, where the fuck are you from?
I am in fucking Cape Town.
You're from fucking Cape Town. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
What are you getting out of this? What are you getting out of today's show so far?
Well, what am I getting out of it? I'm just having fun right now, and I'm really enjoying being able to swear. It's
good.
Cool.
So what's your fucking question?
Yeah, let's get to it. So about the solstices and Cape Town specifically, I've traveled the world and I've lived in various countries, and I don't know whether it is, I'm not originally from Cape Town. I've only been here for a couple of years, and I don't know if it's just me changing or whether it's really the city, but this is really the harshest energies I've ever encountered in my life. And the question is really for the solstice, which energies should I be working with? Because I try to look it up on the internet, and some people say that the south is more the fire energy and others say it's more the water energy. So which one, and what do I do, and what's the deal with Cape?
So first thing first, you don't have to choose anyone else's choices. You could make it your own. You are that unlimited of a being that it doesn't have to be anyone else's predefined definition for any form of what your solstice is going to mean for you. It can just be about you remembering who you are and the victories that you've had, and that's enough. As long as it's longer than 20 minutes and, okay, preferably an hour and a half. 90 minutes is effort. 20 minutes is not effort. Now, Martina, you've spent time in South Africa, right?
I have, yes.
So would you care to talk to her about the harshness of the energy there?
Well, I've left in 2002. I lived there current for 3 years, and my daughter was born in South Africa. And I
In
went,
Cape Town or
Yes.
South Africa?
in
Okay.
Cape Town, yes. I
Because I
worked
lived
for
in Durban, and it's very different there.
Yeah, very different. Now I worked for Engine for the oil company down there, and that was like in '98, which is only 4 years after the finish of the apartheid, really, right? And I was really impressed and amazed, not necessarily seeing much of the division. Maybe I was just ignorant.
Yes,
I don't
that's
know.
very true about Cape Town.
And I was really, really amazed how quickly they had turned it around. Now, we were talking about, reading a book completely early on, not just taking bits and pieces out of it. And I think what you're seeing probably now is that all that old residual energy that has never been really dealt with is now coming through. Is that what you were referring to in terms of harshness?
Not really.
No.
Maybe. I've been going through the galactic history again because the first time I just didn't get everything and I just wanted to go over it. And what really struck me is that the control always happens as a result of the sacred geometry. And Cape Town specifically with a mountain, a lot of people have said that it's ley lines, and my personal experience in this place is that it's the most superficial place I've ever been. Everything is avoidance and everything is superficial. Like, how does it look? It needs to be really, really pretty, and it is, but it never goes down to the depth. And it's extremely, I mean, they took away the water. And it's not because we couldn't do anything about it. It's because government didn't actually want to sign a contract to say, here is authority for you to solve the problem. They would rather deal with the problem and come out as the hero to say that, oh, but we're so cool because we lived through a drought
Yeah.
without actually anything. And
all of that,
it's very
yes.
narcissistic. And
Yeah.
it's just that I find that is the energy of harshness. It's not motherly at all. It is controlling to the most extreme. And I know that was the first city in Africa, really, or maybe not Northern Africa, but the middle to the southern parts. This is where the first Dutch colonies came to. So everything must be sacred geometry. Yeah,
It's probably the least African city. When I lived there, it was very much like I felt like
European. Yes,
European.
totally.
So talking.
There is a history of South Africa long before South Africa was controlled by any of the whites. And there are ancient pyramids and cities deep underneath the grounds there. Also in Durban, South Africa, there's giant underground facilities. And you have all of the stuff that's around Adam's calendars with those big rock circles that Michael Tellinger talks about. There's an energy system there that is based off of the ley lines and harvesting of geomagnetic energy, as well as consciousness energy that can be harvested out of cows, ducks, humans, chickens, whatever. And that consciousness energy can be put into gold that is mined out of the deep underground things, and that consciousness energy that's mined out of the surface people can be put into human DNA lineages that will go deep under the ground and become gold miners, so you can find gold. Now that's an ancient history of particularly that particular area, but it's also the leap off point to the parts of Antarctica. And there are these portals and gateways that have been shut down all around. That's why there's the set of mountains that are all around there. And what you were saying before about sacred geometry, the sacred geometry there is a cork in a bottle, and it's trying to age the energy just like a wine. And then the controllers who are keeping the status quo on the surface are keeping the wine casket at the right temperature so that it doesn't turn to vinegar. And that's why that area seems harsh.
Isn't also Table Mountain a womb chakra there?
Yes, 3. There's actually 3 in that area.
Yes, that was my question, really.
Mhm.
Is it a portal? Is it a womb chakra? Why? Because why am I here? I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Why are you there? Good question. Maybe you should do a ritual and ceremony exactly about that.
Exactly.
Make that your summer solstice ceremony. Why?
Exactly. Wouldn't that be fantastic?
The mother city, because to me it is a coming home, and it is but the mother isn't the mother that I needed or wanted.
Interesting.
Okay. Maybe you need to taste the metaphorical wine that's in the area that's got the cork on it, so you understand why so many different places, spaces, times, and histories want to control that part of Africa.
That's actually my question. Yes, that's why I called in, because I know there's a bigger question, but I don't really know what that question is.
And that's
And
okay.
you better to
That's
ask.
okay.
And
You're at the
you
edge of
have
the
to
unknown.
fucking historian.
That's awesome. And being on the edge of unknown is okay. Just don't frustrate yourself, because right now I'm only going to give you vague answers. Ha ha ha. Okay? There is wine, metaphorical wine, in the energy of the land for you to be tasted. That area is meant to be a mass harvesting place, both good, bad, and neutral. You've got to tap into the positive harvesting energy that is there. And that there are these energetic ports that allow energy to be transferred all over the world or to Antarctica. You could very easily taste the right energy and have a portal open up that takes you to Antarctica and allows you to easily remote view it in a protected state, or to jump over to the tip of South America and to feel that energy there, or jump over to Australia and feel that energy there, or jump forward and north to the Mediterranean energies. Think of it like a 20-pointed star in the South Africa, inside the mountains, that could take you anywhere on the earth in a protected state and allow you to taste the energy of dozens of places, spaces, and older times.
Yeah, a lot of the food for thought there.
Okay. Imagine if you could taste the essence of Japan 1792, or taste the essence of Florida 1335, or taste the essence of Lemuria 44 million years ago. Or you have a sampling of all of them. You've taste tested as many time frequencies as you had. What would you know?
Good question.
Okay, I pose that to Martina. What would you know if you did the metaphorical taste testing from these portals that are there?
Well, you would have to probably start acknowledging that you are a multidimensional being, multi-layered, what's the other multi? Functional, photonic being of light. Maybe just chosen to be there at this point in time in order to do all this tasting business. Maybe this is just your hub of interconnectivity there, to reach out to other hubs of interconnectivity along those lines.
Mm-hmm. And to build up a big wine collection.
And get pissed, fucking pissed at the same time.
I do love the wine farms. That's the good part of Cape Town for sure.
Okay, so part of your summer solstice ritual is go and get two of your best bottles of Cape Town wine and put hours of prayer inside of them. And you're going to use that alcohol that has prayers in it over a period of 5 days, because the 17th to the 23rd, and 2 bottles of wine in 5 days is not being an alcoholic. Okay.
No.
But if you've put 10 hours of prayer, 10 hours of intention, so on and so forth, what are you going to get out of it during those high frequency times?
Thank you.
Your ritual can be that simple. Okay?
Yes.
If you can't have a fire, it's okay. Go to the ocean. Bring some glasses with you. Do candles in the house. Improvise. Because the essence is in what? The prayers you've done ahead of time.
Yeah, I guess the question is, what should my intention be? Yes, so I've got a lot of thinking to do and a lot of well.
Thanks a lot for calling in. You've been a special caller for a lot of people. And when you get a chance, call back in and tell us about your wine tasting tour.
I will do so.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right,
Cheers,
Robert, let's spin up the wheel of fucking callers and see who is fucking next.
Alrighty, the next person is Dami John and Barbara.
Donnie, John, Barbara, are you fucking there?
Hold on, they don't have an unmute button. Darn it.
Never mind.
Okay, I'll go to Shelly's iPhone.
Shelly's iPhone, are you there?
Oh, yes.
Where are you fucking calling from?
Fucking Salem, New Hampshire.
Salem, fucking New Hampshire. Welcome to the show. What are you getting from these last 3 shows that we've done?
Well, there's a lot more I have to learn, that's for sure. I guess what I really wanted to know is, we were talking about Trump earlier, and so I guess he was sort of, I don't know if it's a mirror or not a mirror. However he attacked women, that's how I was, as a woman, that's how I was attacked.
Mm-hmm.
So I had wicked issues about Trump, but is it really his issues or is it my issues?
It's yours.
It's mine. All right.
Yes, he's just triggering you.
Yeah.
And you're allowing it because you're still dealing with the traumas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. That's true. All right. And then let's see.
Trump affects you more than just on the woman issues you have. He irks you. He really irks you.
He really does.
Because you are allowed it into your core. You've allowed the global narrative to influence you so much, you are enraged about him.
All right.
Martina, how do you deal with somebody who's accepted the global narrative to the level of enragement?
I think what you just said was actually asking yourself the question, what is it actually? Is it him? Looking at that mirror, I know you're not a big fan of mirror principle, but I always find it quite useful to, what is he actually triggering you into, and then because that will, give you the level of why you've allowed him to really entangle with you that badly,
Yeah.
So the question I would probably ask here is, what are you not willing to let go of, to look at, with regards to your what? Just keep it open. What are you not willing to look at? When I ask that question, what comes up for you?
Well, is it abuse?
Okay, so. Okay, so I mean, that is a big thing, darling. And abuse is, it's got so many different heads. We've all been abused and have the abuser, on so many, because there's so many different types of abuse. That's just something to look at. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what if that is the opening for you? So what is that abuse? I mean, that's a big thing to look at. What is that you're not willing to look at? Because abuse is too big, so you got to start chunking it down. So just try and uncreate all that energy, that big energy, and then start going into it by asking the question again. So what is it? What is it that you're not willing to look at?
I don't know.
Yeah. So what if you would know?
Well, then I would look at it more.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the thing, there is something that you're not willing to own.
Oh, maybe I was an abuser.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, we've all been there, Shelley. We've all been abusers in different lifetimes and everything. And, so that's number one thing. Yeah. Everywhere you're judging yourself for having been an abuser in this lifetime, other lifetimes, dimension and time streams, you need to let that go.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then start from there. What comes up once you let that go? It's like peeling the onion.
Yeah.
So what comes up?
Well, abuse of myself, abuse of allowing people to abuse me, and not standing up for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would it take to not do that again? To not let that happen? What would it take?
Put myself first.
Yeah. And can you do that?
Yes, I have no choice.
Yeah. Well, you always have choice. And what if that is your choice to put yourself?
Well, that is my choice, is to put myself first.
Great. And what would that would open up so many more opportunities, possibilities for you to choose from, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly. Who
Yeah.
gives a fucking shit about Trump?
Not me.
Right? Exactly. You care less about him. But thank you, Trump, for actually triggering that so that you could start owning your own shit.
I love that. I've been working on that now since 2016.
Well, there you go.
And the journey has ended.
Thank God. Who the hell wants him in my life? Oh my God. That's
So
fucking the
what
bomb.
else is possible from there? That's the question. Good.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Free at last, free at last, free of
Thank
Trump.
God I'm free at last.
That's right.
All right. No, that's really good. I like that. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome.
So Orange Man irrelevant in your life. No longer Orange Man bad, Orange Man irrelevant.
I can feel him just leaving out of my chest.
That's getting rid of the global narrative demons.
Oh, that's so good.
That.
So, but do yourself a favor here. As this is leaving out of your chest, why don't you just quickly now open up your crown chakra here and allow that golden light of the central sun to come into that body of yours so that you can actually, I wouldn't say you don't have to replace spaces, but it would be nice to just bring a little bit of that healing energy from the central sun into the chest. To really let go of all the residual stuff that used to be there for so long and now no longer is. And take a few, take a deep breath in all the way along the spine, along your vagus nerve, and then just exhale all the residual crap. Good. Cool.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome, Shelley.
Appreciate it.
All right, Shelley, thanks a lot for calling in. You were a good teacher for a lot of people there. All
Thank
right,
you.
Martina, we are at the end of the show. And do you want to give people a way for them to get a hold of you and join your Wednesday group?
Yes. So the website, my website is www.synchholistic.co.uk. And since I have mentioned the book, and we all need to read books, so my book is called Sync Holistic. And you can find that on Amazon. So just type in my name and Sync Holistic. And then we have the earthnouveau.com, which is our collective website with the mentorship friends that I have accumulated. And we're having our show tomorrow at 5 o'clock UK time. And we're going to talk about bodies, modalities, because we're all healers and therapists, and see how we can actually work from the outside in, because we spend so much time working the inside out. See what does actually touch and healing, hands-on healing can facilitate to work the other way around.
Can you type your website and your Earth Nouveau into the chat room there?
Yeah.
And everyone, you know who I am. We will be back this coming Thursday with new layers of information for you to think about, to process, and for you all to begin to do your fucking homework.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget that.
So what is your fucking homework? To make a swearing invocation to motivate your ass into doing something this summer solstice.
And don't you fucking come back next time and haven't done your fucking homework, because otherwise
I'm going to call you a fucking poser. Exactly.
Fuck off.
Exactly. Fuck off. Exactly.
Namaste. Cheers, Abe. Thank you.
Fucking namaste, yes. All right, Robert, take us away.
Each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person
that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma. Nudge, nudge. It's the holy grail. Improvise. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.